This is the Old Doctor Who Show, episode number 159, The Rogue. Dan, welcome back to the Old Doctor Who
Eric,
Show.
how you doing?
Yes, we're back again.
Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, back again.
Doing
Every
this thing.
week in, week out. We are...
Oh, that was you last time.
Yeah,
okay.
that was me.
Yeah.
How are you, Dan?
Okay. Cool. I'm doing great, Eric. What is new in your world before we dive into this?
Sure.
Talking about this new episode.
I will tell you that I said last week on this show that I didn't think I was going to watch Dot and Bubble again, and I did. I actually ended up watching it again.
What made you want to do that to yourself?
I don't know.
Just kidding. It wasn't
I
terrible.
don't know,
Okay,
because
whatever.
I don't know. I just felt like for whatever reason watching it again, because I was thinking about my criticisms of it and was I being too hard on it. So I watched it again. I will say I did like it more the second time. All of my critiques are still withstanding. I think they're all still there. Mostly because I was interested in I liked what we were talking about with Ricky September, which kept making me think of the Kids in the Hall movie when the Scott Thompson is watching Mr. November upstairs.
Hi, kids. Where's your father?
He's upstairs masturbating to gay porn.
Again.
So every time
good.
I kept hearing Ricky
I
September,
can't
I was
believe
hearing it
didn't
in
think
that
of That's
voice.
really good.
From the,
We'll put a link in the show notes so you can buy brain candy.
That's all pretty much it. I don't have anything. I'm a little tired today. I went to a midnight movie last night. 2 movies, a double feature. Started at 10. I didn't get home until 2:30. It was a Giallo. I know I can't do that. Guy sitting in the thing eating my goobers, watching Deep Red. Watched Dario Argento's Deep Red.
There's somebody in the house absolutely trying to kill me.
Can't say no to Argento. That's my motto. And Blood and Black Lace.
Ha visto come l'assassino ha infierito su quella poveretta?
Brilliant, wonderful Italian horror masterpieces. But so I'm a little tired, so I can't do what I used to do. I can't do this. So if I'm a little off, you're going to have to carry most of the
folks
show
are looking
today.
forward to that. Was this screened in your town?
So there's this guy, tape_hell. You can follow him on Instagram. That curates these movies, and they do a lot of cult movies. I saw Eraserhead there. I did the Evil Dead movies there. He does a lot. He likes Giallo films as well. So I saw, Suspiria there and a bunch of things. So it's always good. I can't always make it because I'm honestly, it's by the time I was in the midnight movie, my eyes, I'm in that dream state, which for Argento
Actually kind of works for you, right? Yeah.
It's kind of the perfect place to be. So it was good. What
so
about you, Dan? What did you do?
The hour being late and the amount of NyQuil you drank before you went and really probably set you on the right.
Yeah, then it's just... And then I find out I wasn't at the movies at all. I was just bound and gagged in my own basement, which is hard to do.
To do it to yourself.
Yeah,
obviously.
It's very hard. But when you talk with the hand puppets, you're like, shut your mouth!
It really seems real at the time.
Shut your mouth!
Yeah. What happened? Well, something happened to both of us, and I mentioned this on X. I'm calling it X. We
oh yes, now I know what you're going to talk about.
We got mentioned in the Radio Times, radiotimes.com. Their article was what is the best Doctor Who podcast, and they had a nice sampling of different Doctor Who podcasts. Not that we're not wanting for more Doctor Who podcasts in the world. So it was nice for us to get a mention with that. They were kind of talking about classic Doctor Who. I'm just going to read a real quick quote here because why not? We got mentioned in a thing. So it said, what is the classic Doctor Who podcast? It says there are 2 answers to this question: the official Doctor Who podcast and the old Doctor Who show, which both appear in our best Doctor Who podcast guide. The official Doctor Who podcast is available on BBC Sounds and the other podcast streaming services, etc. The Old Doctor Who show, on the other hand, is hosted by fans Eric Grissom and Dan Johnson, and it focuses on reviewing classic Doctor Who episodes. In comparison, the Old Doctor Who show podcast is mostly discusses the new series, and then they break it down by, if you're looking for deep dives, this is the best podcast. If you're looking for X, Y, or Z, this is, and for us, like you said,
yes,
this is for reviews. Which, since we're 159.
Right. It's funny that we're singled out for classic Doctor Who, and it's best Doctor Who podcast for classic Doctor Who's. Who back when? God bless you. Who back when? Hat tip to you. But we didn't get that category, but we did get reviews, which is amazing considering our show. Yeah, I love it.
Really good.
I love it.
So
it's a huge honor.
They did say from the other side of the pond comes the old Doctor Who show. Hosts Eric Grissom, Dan Johnson, are two Americans who love Doctor Who. Well, that's questionable. No, just kidding. And who can blame him? The old Doctor Who show. We offer our perspective on classic episodes of the series, such as the Moon Base. Weird. I mean, call that one out, I guess. But okay.
Yeah, I know we reviewed it, and I'm like, was there something special about the Moon Base?
You say the Moon Base,
but yeah, they're all.
You say
special.
the Moon Base, and
they're
I picture
special.
the Sensorites, which is not the same episode at all. But they're on a moon base, so I don't have any idea what the Moon Base was about. Was that the one with?
Yeah, it
was Zoe
probably
in that
great.
one. Anyway,
the Moon Base is a trout.
Who knows?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't.
Here's
we don't
here's
even
the
know.
reason why we're nominated as one of the best Doctor Who podcasts. We know nothing about the show.
Yes.
At
Yeah.
all.
This is like what is this memento for us.
time.
So every moment it's just we're resetting and we have to constantly write things down.
I have so many tattoos. It's ridiculous. Go ahead.
Yeah. For people that are watching us for the first time now, obviously we're reviewing new Who episodes, but we are inching up on 10 years in January.
Oh my goodness.
So the bulk of our reviews are classic Doctor
And
Who.
those are all available as the audio podcast. You can find that here
on YouTube, Spotify, all of that, Apple Podcasts. I have a note about some other technically classic Doctor Who review thing to throw on the table that we will get to when we get to
fantastic.
I have nothing else. I'm
let's
looking
dive
forward
in.
to jumping into. Okay, so hit the button. Are we
No, we're
shaking
shaking a
no,
crime
we're
stick.
shaking a crime
Which
stick.
no one understands why we're doing that.
Yeah, I don't even
love it.
understand, but I've committed.
Yeah, we're doing
to
it forever.
And so we're shaking it. So shake that crime stick.
Shake the crime stick!
Oh, this is so Bridgerton.
Lord Barton approaches.
Oh, it's a tall glass of heartbreak.
There's a Chulder at work on this planet, and I've been paid good money to find you.
What could be better than a wedding?
This is Rogue, Dan. This is the 6th episode of season number series 14, season 1, series 14, whatever. The Doctor and Ruby are Bridgerton. In a Bridgerton.
They Bridgertoned it.
Bridgerton. But who's there? Is it Bridgerton? No.
It's Bridgerton.
It's Rogue. And then there's dancing, and there's intrigue, and there's cosplay. Dan, what did you think of Rogue?
What a fun episode.
I had to keep saying Bridgerton. I'm sorry, because for fans of the old Doctor Who show, this is the Concord of Bridgertons.
Why does it have to be another Concord?
It was a fun episode. It was just an all-around fun episode. There was a lot of action going on. There was the intrigue. There was the reveal of an additional member of the alien family, the Chulder. We had a fun
Chudder?
The Chuds. Oh my god.
The Chuds.
I can see the VHS cover of Chuds right now. That's so great. When I was a little kid, I wanted to watch it so badly because I thought it was like Gremlins, and my mom was like, "No, we are not. We're not watching that." Oh no, I'm thinking of Ghoulies. I'm thinking of Ghoulies.
You're thinking of Ghoulies, which is amazing. The Ghoulies movies are amazing. I love those. The cover of the first Ghoulies,
Toilet.
I believe,
Right.
the Ghoulie is coming out of the
It
toilet.
appealed to
so
8-year-old
it sets
me
the
very
stage
much
for
so.
what you're going to get. Chud was also from the same time. That was something humanoid underground dweller, right? Something, because it was like CHUD. I believe I saw it. Can't remember a thing about it. But yes, go on.
Okay, well, fantastic.
We're not here to talk
we should
about
review
Chuds.
that too. Are we not? Because I'll do it. Also, we got a great cameos not cameos, but like guest stars throughout this. Obviously, in terms of what they're doing with the character of the Doctor and moving him into a kind of an area that we haven't seen before, like a full-on romance, which is happening. Heartbreaking. You got the relationship between the Doctor and Ruby intensifying even more so.
Yeah.
I just really enjoyed this. And I'm not like a huge. I've seen one episode of Bridgerton.
Yeah, I have
think.
zero.
I love a lot of like those period shows as well. So I've seen a lot of that, and that's super fun. But I get what they're going for, and a lot of the allusions that they're making to it was really great. Obviously, more of it was not allusion, was just straight up like, hey, we're doing Bridgerton. Anyway, it was fun. I have lots of thoughts about particular things, but Eric, I want to know what your top line is.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. So at the end of the day, I liked it. I had a lot of issues with it, like, which we'll get to, like little things like, oh, okay, why is this doing this, blah, 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 blah. But all in all, like, I rather enjoy the Doctor. I feel like he's very charming and it's fun. And I liked the rogue character, who was very much, you're just like, oh, Captain Jack Harkness is back. So
people keep saying that, but I want to
even
get
just
into,
the delivery of the lines and everything, it felt very much like that. Well, of course, like on its surface, you have a roguish character that's showing up, that is, making flirting with the Doctor, and sort of, you're not sure what his intentions are, whether he's good or bad, at least in the beginning. Although I feel like you figure out pretty quickly what his intentions are. I have a lot to say about him. I'm going to save that for later, including some theories, because of course you have to have insane theories. But I did.
Is he actually Mrs. Flood?
No, but it's just
okay.
Wait,
No,
just wait, because we'll get there.
Okay,
I liked it. The couple of things that I didn't like, and this is, I think, true of the Doctors, the way that they're writing the Doctor or doing the Doctor, is everything is so. The emotional roller coaster is just constantly going from like 0 to like 100,000, and you lose. I feel like you lose some of the weight of these scenes, particularly like the Doctor, because this is a very emotional Doctor. I think the Doctor's cried in 80% of the stories.
He was crying through Space Babies just because. Yeah,
even like the first time, like Church on Ruby Road, the first time you see him, he's crying. So his emotions are very much always on the surface and ready to just show up. And yet at the end of this, there's that scene, which is a great scene on its own, all the way at the very end, where he's like, let's go, we're going, but this is what we do, we go. And she's like, no, like, take a minute. And I feel like that works better with a character that suppresses their emotions the whole time, and now here's his release. But this Doctor's very much always showing his emotions. So I felt like that scene was like, would have worked maybe better if he wasn't so free to let things go. I don't think there's anything wrong with being free to let things go. Yeah. But I feel like that scene would have been, because he's not a Doctor that doesn't stop to feel. He's constantly feeling. This is probably thinking too much into it, putting too much into it. But I just wonder if there's any thought to the split of like, okay, David Tennant is the introspective,
interesting,
intelligent, not intelligent.
I know what you mean.
That this Doctor's not intelligent, but like emotion versus, that split, and he is kind of like the id, like all of the feelings, and the other half of him, because I still think they're coming back together.
They have to.
In 2 episodes.
You're right though, because like when they do the bi-generation, they even they split up clothing. So you could see like every part of them is actually kind of split, and maybe this is, the Tennant's Doctor has all the safeguards on his emotions, and this one does not.
And this one's just like total id, impulse driven, just go,
exuberant.
Go, like whatever.
So,
and then
he's so
it's interesting.
Exuberant. That's the word I want. Like he's just Go ahead.
I was gonna say, it is weird just to think like, okay, we just split David Tennant and we put him on a park bench. We just haven't mentioned him. We haven't seen him. It's just like we have to just think he's just out there,
right? And it's hard.
Which I think he is 100% coming back in the next 2 episodes. But like,
or at some point, and I'm not entirely sure that everything's going to get wrapped up. Is this just like the end of the season, really a cliffhanger setup for the next season? I did read some sort of like something about that, where like we're not going to actually get, and I wouldn't expect a full resolution to everything, but it's just it's really, this season is setting up the next season, is something I read.
I think we are seeing David Tennant only because in the season 1 trailer, we do see the Doctor, Shudigatwa, hugging Rose. New Rose, not old Rose.
Oh, we do?
There's like a scene, I think like there's like 3 seconds of him running up and hugging her, which we have not seen yet.
I don't remember that.
Maybe
okay, cool.
Yeah, so he's gonna return, I feel like, to the Don. And why not? Because we have the season next time on, it's very unit focused. Yeah. So we see Kate, we see who's the one from the Colin Baker shows that I'm blanking on with the red hair?
Oh, Mel.
We see Mel. So I believe Donna's working there, right? Didn't she get offered
Yeah, I
a
think she
job
got-
at Unit? So maybe that's the ticket back to Rose.
It does make sense, and it's hard to know. Like you said, we just have this other we have this other 10th
pretty
doctor
big deal
hanging
that's
out there,
just-
and they never mentioned it. And it's hard to know, is that in story, in universe, or is that like, well, you know, we only had David Tennant for a short period of time, so we can't actually have it. Like,
Yes,
so
I think it's both.
It's obviously
right?
both,
Yeah.
but like, yeah, it's just it's hard to
and
know
also
how much to
big
read
Finish
into that.
stories, I'm sure they will fit into
Right.
that window. So there was like little things like that, and then we'll get into the story things and like, okay, well, why did the
How did this
Ruby
work?
tell
Yeah.
anyone this and like blah 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 and like again, I liked it though. I thought it was like fun. I watched it twice. Usually I don't watch things twice, although this season I guess I've been watching a lot twice. I liked it. So I don't know if we want to dive into the individual things. I really want to talk about Rogue.
Yeah.
And my dumb theories on Rogue.
Okay.
And I want to talk about obviously the romance aspect of this whole thing. So I don't know where you want to start. Do you want to just pick
Let's just jump at the beginning.
themes and
Let's go through the beginning.
Okay.
Let's but yeah, totally jump around. But yeah, cool.
one other
Go
thing
for it.
before we jump around. I hated the fact that they kept saying Bridgerton. Now, I don't have any connection to Bridgerton.
Right.
But that's not why. I personally don't like when science fiction fantasy stories attach themselves to some element of pop culture that is only relevant now. Like if we were watching all those classic Doctor Who great stories, like if they were just mentioning like EastEnders, I don't know what was on TV in the UK at that time. I just went for EastEnders
Sure.
or something like that. That's like it dates
Which
it
is
in a way.
EastEnders is probably a bad choice because it was also a super long running show that was still
totally. Like I just
know what
you
Yeah,
picked
yeah.
the show that was hot at the moment,
Right.
And you get it. Like she wants to say it once, it's okay, but it was like Concord for me,
Why does it have to be another Concord?
where they kept saying, "Oh, we're in Bridgerton," and I know nothing about Bridgerton,
Right.
so I'm like, is Bridgerton a location? Is it? I had to look it up. It's a family name that's based on a book series that was made into a Netflix show. And I think even some of the in the show Bridgerton, it's the same type of plot.
Yes.
Like it's a
Yes.
romance.
I mean, that's the
type thing.
whole
They take
conceit. Is I get what you're saying, but can I just push back a little bit and say
push back.
Here we go. I'm just
push me right off the cliff, man.
I think that Doctor Who does this a lot. I think a lot of science fiction does this all the time. But like Doctor Who specifically, I'm trying to think of any specifics, but of course they won't come to mind because we're just talking about it now. I'll remember them all as soon as we stop recording. But it does feel like times when they will take a concept or a theme from another show or pop culture thing that's going on and put their own spin on it. So it's X except Doctor Who. And this is one. I know what you're saying, though. This is very
I'm fine with that.
specific.
Just don't keep saying Bridgerton.
Right. This could have been, it's like a period piece, whatever. Like that would have
like
been
the
fine.
Strictly Ballroom line when
Which
he
is great.
mentions the Baz
Instant
Luhrmann
Strictly,
film.
yeah.
Awesome. And it's like if you know that movie, you know Baz Luhrmann, you're like, oh, okay. But that they didn't keep saying it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's like, so I'm okay with like a one-time nod to your influence.
Except
I don't know. It's fine, but keep going. Yeah.
with
keep
the
push.
Bridgerton theme, like I said, I've only seen like one episode of it, but I am more aware of it. One of the things they do is in that show, it's anachronistic. So they'll take pop songs from now and they'll play orchestral or string versions of it. So when they're dancing,
which they did.
They were playing like they're playing a Gaga song during a fight scene. They're playing "Bad Guy" by Billie Eilish in the opening. Like they do, so it wasn't just they're referencing Bridgerton in terms of the setting and like the drama and the soap opera sort of period piece of it. They were actually making direct allusions to how it works. Yeah.
I will also say that Westworld did that as well. They would have like the old piano playing Soundgarden or whatever. It doesn't matter. I get your point.
Yeah.
But again, that's my thing is more of how it was layered so much into the dialogue.
Again, like you said, if they had said it one time and just let that be and still keep the rest of it like, oh, they need to have a twist and they need to have the wedding at the end and it's a cease. Like they could have kept all that without continuously referring to Bridgerton by name.
Yes.
I get it.
I like the music. You talked about the music. So like you have, as you said, Bad Guy playing when he's talking to Rogue for the first time.
Good vantage point, keeping an eye out on the exits, like you're expecting trouble.
Are you?
on the balcony, and then also not in that fashion, but then you get the Kylie Minogue song, which she was on
Wonderful.
Doctor Who, so it was kind of like that was kind of cool. I felt like the Lady Gaga one was very obvious because it was like right in your face in the middle of I think that's when she's fighting.
They're dance fighting, and there's no
which
dialogue happening.
That's another thing I did not like about.
Whatever. They
I don't
planted
like
the
fact
seed and
that
then paid it off. So it's
I don't
fine.
like how like these superpowers, like when you make the sonic screwdriver do everything.
Yes.
I don't like that the TARDIS can have space earrings and then you can know how to dance and fight, and it's like because then you could use that in any situation, and it lowers the stakes. So I don't know.
I don't.
I would
disagree
rather
with you.
have her outsmart the alien and get out using her abilities than this magical TARDIS. I didn't like that.
Yeah. I mean, that like we've mentioned this before from Classic Who, that was one of the reasons, during the Pertwee era, they grounded him on Earth and didn't have him like being able to use the TARDIS. They stopped relying on the Sonic for a while because it became a crutch. I think there were just
and
areas,
he knew
periods
Venetian
where they do
judo
that.
chops from studying. He did the work.
That's right.
He didn't just have the TARDIS.
He did his 10,000 hours and he became a master.
Come on, Pertwee did the work.
Yeah.
Do the work.
Do the work, Ruby. But anyway, so we got that. This is a detail that does not matter at all.
Give me the
but
I'm throwing out details that don't matter.
The opening shot when we're coming into the ballroom and the camera pans down, there's a chandelier, and hanging from the chandelier is a crystal bird. Anyway, so like from the very beginning, it's birds the whole way through.
Oh, there's birds.
There's birds everywhere. Yeah, I mean, the psychic earring was fine, but what I really liked is it allowed them to have that dance scene, and not only were the characters so like happy and joyful and just like this is so much fun, but it looked like the actors were having a really good time too.
Yes.
So if that's what they needed to be able to explain away, well, how can they do Regency dances? I'm cool because it was so fun.
Yes, and it matches the theme of the particular show of cosplaying, of being someone you're not, like of playing Dungeons and Dragons. You're going to know how to dance.
Right.
When you play. So it's like, I get that part of it.
Right. Right. I know what you mean.
It was fun.
But
it's all good.
The Doctor does make some reference whenever Ruby is being taken off by the Countess to go like find a suitor. Which the actress playing the Duchess of Pemberton, Indira
she was
Varma.
in Rome. She's great.
Wonderful.
I love her.
Wonderful. I know her from Game of Thrones. I think is the first like big place that I saw her as well. But she's wonderful.
She was in
throughout.
Rome too. She was a character reference to Gregory Suicide, the scientist in Gregory Suicide.
Oh,
little Easter eggs.
Little Easter eggs for y'all.
Yeah.
But no, so she was great both as the Duchess and then as the CHUD, as the CHUD playing.
Now we're just going to say CHUDs.
As the CHUD playing the Duchess.
The
She was
shoulder.
Super fun.
Yeah.
So great to see her, in addition to having Jonathan Groff later as guest star. Really, really fun. But anyway, as she's taking Ruby off to find a suitor, the Doctor makes some reference like, don't go getting married and don't go inventing tarmac. 1902,
and then something
1902 got away from me. I love those little things where it's like, these are some of the stories of the Doctor that we get to see, but we're not seeing everything that happens either with him or with the companion. There's some indeterminate amount of time that's happened between them. I really felt that with Tennant and Donna. Tennant and Donna, they just had a lot of adventures, and you would just check in on them throughout.
Yeah.
I like that there's like some amount of time has passed. Anyway, just a small thing, but I like that. Cool. So
let's talk about Rogue. I feel like
we're getting there.
I got to get into this. Okay.
Can I just say, you had mentioned, we see this later with the Sonic being like, it's a whatever you need it to be. It's a MacGuffin. It's a multi-tool. It's a Swiss Army knife. But also, it's so big and so obvious now. So in 1812, is that when this 1812, 1813? When he's scanning the dance floor, he's holding it down by his side. In any sort of quasi-modern setting, no one would even give it a second glance. But here, it's like, there's no way to hide a thing like that. And he's not even trying to.
No.
Small thing. Doesn't matter. But it just something. Put it under, go behind a curtain. I don't know. Just like, it felt a little bit. But then the moment that he and Rogue make eye contact.
One thing before you get to that moment, which was, I agree on all those things with the contact, but the space earrings, the TARDIS earrings that is giving them the dancing ability and everything. There's that feedback issue. Now, you could say, okay, that feedback issue is because the Rogue is running some surveillance thing, or it's picking up on that. But there's another issue when Rogue appears and the TARDIS starts making noises and he has to do something. Like, is there something with the TARDIS and this collapsed world or whatever, or the character of Rogue? Like, is there something to that whole interference thing that they make a point? Because you didn't need to even have that. He could have just been looking around and seen Rogue and then had that scene.
Except
so like they make a point.
They did need to split up. They needed to split up there so she can go off. And
well, she's going to go do her thing. She's going to do her thing.
I guess she was going to do that anyway, and then she gets the feedback. You're right.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know because there's also another note. Later when he goes in his ship.
Yep.
The TARDIS is acting funny, and I feel like there's been previous episodes where the TARDIS has groaned or not been quite right. So I don't know. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll see in the next couple of stories. So
Rogue, you got the
we get to Rogue. I am not a huge fan of Jonathan Groff. I like him. I like him in a lot of things I've seen him. I even liked him in the short-lived HBO series Looking that got derided by the entire gay community. Everyone hated it. But I thought it was good. I thought the character was a difficult character, but I liked him. The only thing I didn't like about him in this is the amount of like under eyeliner he had. Other than that, he was good. Their chemistry was great. Everyone's already talked about this, I'm sure, across the entire world. But like their chemistry was just instant. It
was good. Yeah, I liked all of it. Perfect World. I would have had him in more than one episode. I feel like their little. Well, just their arc to the kiss
was so fast
to the sacrifice. Like everything feels so rushed in some of these, and I get it because there's only 8 episodes. But when you think about like all these at least 2 Dr. Light, like it just would have been nice if somehow we had seen their courtship longer,
right?
But I get it. Like it's
that instant
part
connection.
Yeah, they have an instant connection, and it is like built into a romance trope, like. Yes. It's the ball, and then you're meeting in and that. So I'm okay with it.
Right.
I would have liked to just have seen a little bit more. He's an interesting character. I liked him. Obviously, I know him from Hamilton, but also Mindhunters, which was a short-lived show on Netflix, which is amazing. David Fincher show. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but
I haven't seen it, but I know.
Yeah, he's like it's like the FBI or whatever.
Right.
So I liked him. You mentioned I want to dive a little bit deeper into why you didn't get any Jack Harkness vibes or how you see them being different.
Yes.
That was like immediately I was like, oh, okay. And yeah, so was there something about it that's just a different character for you?
Well, yeah, it's a different character, but also think about Jack Harkness. His thing was he was flirtatious with everyone.
Yes.
Everyone. Any species, any gender, just flirtatious with everyone to the point of just like really coming on to the point where it's like kind of obnoxious, but like whatever, it's his character.
Yeah.
The distinction I see here is it's not Rogue that's doing the flirtatious sort of like coming on really strong. It's the Doctor the whole time. He's the one that's actually making all the winks and advances, and he's doing the dance whenever he's like trapped in the triform and doing the Kylie Minogue. Like he's doing it the entire time until he isn't, which I want to talk about later. But it's not a Jack Harkness character in that way. I think it's really superficially Jack Harkness in that it is a male-on-male romance. And it's reciprocated in that way. He is roguish, Jack Harkness is, and this is a character called Rogue. He's a bounty hunter. So there's some like guy working outside the law. Jack had stolen the time manipulator, the time vortex manipulator. This guy is also a time traveler, ? Obviously he is, but they don't really make reference to it, but he has to be.
Well, I can get into that.
Okay,
soon.
so we'll talk about that too.
I think that's a great point, though. I think you've changed my mind actually, because I think that's a great point because he isn't the one pushing these things.
No,
he's the one just doing his job. Right, his job is there to catch the CHUD, and he thinks he's got the CHUD. And you're right; it's like the Doctor is more of the Jack Harkness character, the overly flirtatious. So that's interesting. All right, so I will just throw this out there. I don't know if this is true.
Okay.
But I'm thinking that Rogue is a Cholder.
I had a similar thought.
So here's why I say that. So the first time the doctor finds out about the Cholder, he's like, "Oh yeah, the Cholder, shape-shifting aliens. I've never met one before, or have I?" He plays Dungeons and Dragons, a game in which you cosplay, a game in which you inhabit the body of another person for all of this stuff. He knows a ton about them. He knows how long they live. He flies around in a bird. The Cholders are all bird,
absolutely
raptor based.
I don't know
beaks,
that they're necessarily
like
raptor
owls.
based,
Some
but
of them.
The bird ship that he's flying,
they look
definitely
bird-like.
feels like a bird of prey that eats other birds. So
yeah,
why would his ship? Yes, totally agree.
Yes. So all of those things, and it was like, okay, so is he from a planet of these things, and he's just working with them? And then it's like, I think this is the first time he's meeting the doctor. I don't think it's going to be like, I'm so-and-so because I've changed forms. But I do think when he says, find me again, or go find me, when he's blasted off into the other dimension, the mystery dimension, maybe he'll have a different face.
When you see me again, it's gonna be me.
Is he Susan Twist?
Who knows?
But yeah, no.
Well, right. Again, I think there is something to that. There's so many bird references. The fact that there's the Dungeons and Dragons dice, is the Dungeons and Dragons, which is a game, cosplaying is kind of a game. Is this like a toy maker game?
Well, Eric, if you recall,
also situation.
That's very good, because whenever the Doctor is captured by Rogue after we don't need to go through the entire plot. I'm assuming everyone read this.
Sure.
But he gets captured, taken back to his ship, which I want to talk about as well. What was I saying? He takes it back to the ship. He's scanning. The Rogue is scanning the Doctor when he's captured on the Triform. He says there's so much paperwork to do. Ever since we got this new boss, there's so much paperwork.
Yes.
So there is this whole thing that the Pantheon is still coming through, or whatever we're calling it.
And who is his previous partner as well?
Absolutely.
Because they make a point of, he's lost someone, and we could talk about that scene later when they talk about losing. They both have lost people or whatever. I have some issues with that, but that's an excellent point. That the new boss, is that he who waits behind the cornrows?
He wants you too. Malachi.
Is it one of these gods, or that's cool. I remember that line, but I did not write that down. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Why does he have a teddy bear? Why does he have a teddy bear?
I
in his
don't know.
spaceship?
So I watched the behind the scenes featurettes they do release on YouTube the next day or the day after. And the set design is fantastic. They actually used a bunch of the previous sets from other stories, including Space Babies, and repurposed them, which is great. Hey, environmental. But there's so much detail in the back because, like they mentioned in the story, he had a partner. He's now on his own. The place is a mess because he's dealing with his own
his own
dealing with his own grief and trauma.
We assume he doesn't say his partner died. He just says, and then they were gone, right?
And then they were gone.
We assume it is death. But yeah, go on.
Yeah. So, but to your point of why is there a teddy bear there? I wanted to see a breakdown of all the things. I feel like there's a ton of interesting stuff in the deep background that we can't actually see.
Yeah.
But the teddy bear was super prominent.
Yeah, it's
and
very
I don't know
big.
why.
It's very
it was
behind.
right over his shoulder for a lot of it. Yeah. So that was interesting. With Rogue, though, so he's obviously a bounty hunter that's flying all around space to execute this literally execute these contracts. If they're found guilty, he just sends them into an incinerator. But he's also anachronistic for the time. D&D, something was invented in 1970, whatever it was. But they're in the 18 Regency period, 1812, 13, whatever it is.
Right. So he's definitely time traveling.
But they don't
say
really
it,
talk about
but
it.
how
much.
would he arrive in the 1800s?
I mean, he has to be right. So it is that, but the fact that I guess my point is just why don't they talk about that more, especially later whenever the Doctor takes Rogue into his shed and which is fun.
I like the shed.
He has the
hid it behind a tree and all of that.
Hid it behind a tree. the Doctor singing the song from Willy Wonka, "Come With Me," and you'll see, which was really fun. They kind of do a bigger on the inside thing, but the guy's so sophisticated, he gets that it's a transdimensional whatever. That was really cool. But the Doctor's like, I could all the places I could show you, but this guy's also a space and time traveler, so it kind of muddied it up a little bit for me.
Yes, or he's really saying we could have a relationship together.
Absolutely, saying that too.
New things and love, and
they have that banter back and forth of all the places I could show you, and Rogue is what if I like my job? Would you come traveling with me? Which is a first.
Yeah,
that a companion's saying no, you come with me instead, and the Doctor's like that's a fair point. Why don't we argue across the stars about it? Oh, I loved that. It's a cheesy-ish line, but I really, really enjoyed it because the chemistry is so good. I don't know. It was super fun.
Yeah, it was
anyway.
good. And he also, again, we talked about how he knows a ton about these CHUDs, Chulders. They also make a point of how long do these things live? 600 years. Is there something to 600 years?
Oh.
Why is it just a detail thrown in there? Is it going to connect to something where the Doctor 600 years from now or 600 years ago? Or is there... do the math on 1812 and 600. I don't know. It just felt like, why even say
why that number? Well, except
just to show that
it was a very dark thing that he was saying
like, I want them
it.
to suffer. So maybe it's a nonsense line, but that's when I was very much into. Oh, he's clearly a bird lady or Birdman.
Bird thing. So yeah, we also get a couple of fun. Callback, not really callbacks, but things we haven't seen in a while. They do the whole psychic paper gag, which they've done, innumerable times.
This time,
recently.
It shows the Doctor's
inner
thoughts, or like his id, or like it's not. It's maybe he's just flustered. He says he's flustered.
Well,
right?
That's the thing. So that's what I meant before when I say like the Jack Harkness characteristic of coming on strong is the Doctor's until it isn't, and that's when his actual feelings are put in black and white on paper to Rogue, and then he starts getting all flustered, and Rogue's the one that's kind of coming onto him a little bit.
Yeah,
so
I feel like
I do like to have that little dynamic.
I do feel like though the flirting that the Doctor's doing is met pretty quickly by Rogue too.
Oh yeah,
it's just in a different way, but like he's also hardcore flirting at some point, even when they're walking around. But he's still going to kill him. So then it's like, okay, that's a little bit more Jack Harkness like to even be flirting with someone right before you're going to kill him.
Right before, and trying to use that. Can we talk about? Unless you, I just want to talk about
triangle. Oh no, yeah. What do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about the holograms. So Rogue scans him and is like deep scan confirmed. He's a shapeshifter, which can kind of get like he's had multiple faces. And then the Doctor,
and then you see all
at the last second throws
something much older and far more powerful. I'm a Lord of Time from the lost and fallen planet of Gallifrey. Now let me go, bounty hunter. We have work to do.
Did you catch the extra Doctor?
So, I saw an extra Doctor. I'm like, who is that?
Yep.
I looked it up. So I was like, who is it? Because I couldn't, even though I know the actor, it's Richard E. Grant from a Flash-based thing. And that's what I have. I feel like, why didn't we review that?
I didn't even know it
existed
until now.
I didn't even know it existed. No listeners ever told us to review it, but it's in between Rose and Paul McGann.
Yeah.
I'm the Doctor. Hello. hello. And that's the Master, who I see isn't holding on to anything.
Yes.
And now I guess it's canon, whatever canon means, again, depending on what universe we're in. Is it watchable? Like, is it streamable somewhere? If it's a Flash animation from 2002 or 3,
right,
it's probably going to be a hard watch.
Well,
but I think it's 6 parts.
It would kind of be...
It's probably short.
It'd be impossible to watch because it was a Flash. Like, you can't even
Somebody probably turned it into a movie, or a video.
Although people didn't... Okay, so apparently at the time... So
he is now...
Richard E. Grant...
Canon.
He's canon in this pocket universe or bubble universe, whatever we're talking about.
Whatever.
Richard E. Grant, he was also the actor who played the Great Intelligence as well.
And he was in something else too, right?
Well,
Doctor Who related.
He was first he was the character that then became the Great Intelligence, so he kind of played dual roles, but he was the same actor. But yeah, so now we're bringing that into this. Apparently, at the time that Flash movie, miniseries, web series was brought online, they were saying, BBC was saying, this is the new Doctor. Like, this is what we're doing now, because it wasn't going to be for another couple of years. Maybe they didn't even know at the time that they're going to be rebooting the show in 2005. So it had been canon until it wasn't, when Russell T Davies comes in and brings on Eccleston as the 9th Doctor, who would be who that one was. So he's
right. And then they undid it, I guess. So now he's right,
which is so, I think, in a meta way, again, this whole breaking the fourth wall, winking at the audience. Russell T Davies is the one that kind of wrote this Doctor out and is now writing him back in again. So it's just fun in a way of like, this thing I didn't even know actually now seems to have a lot more. Maybe it means nothing. Well, you said maybe meta, throwing it away, but it was fun.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this whole season is about Doctor Who.
In a meta way.
Doctor Who, the show, in a meta way. Like, we're seeing that all over the place, like you're saying, with the playing of the theme song and the breaking the fourth wall. Yeah. But I know nothing about that Flash movie. Was it like well, you're shaking your head no, so you probably don't know.
I've only seen
I don't know is it like, did he have companions? Is it like mini adventures? Is it just one adventure?
I don't know how many it was, but it was a new Doctor, so it wasn't like a continuation. It wasn't like one of these like reconstructed telesnap things of like, Pertwee's Doctor or anything. It was a new Doctor and a companion for at least one story. Maybe there were more, but it was not.
How did no one tell us to review that? I blame you, the listeners.
You specifically listening to this right now are the one that we have to blame. Anyway, so that was fun that we got to see that. You got to see Tenet twice, actually, which was kind of fun too.
Yes.
Got real short.
Yeah. Oh, and you also get the War Doctor, but also the Jodie Whittaker doctors, who I can't remember.
The fugitive Doctor.
The other woman.
Fugitive Doctor.
That's the fugitive Doctor, right? Yeah. And so all of that is all part of this tapestry of Who.
So there is another callback to Doctor Who classic series. Was it Brain of Morbius, where they're showing.
I love Brain of Morbius, but I can't remember what you're going to say.
The Doctor is in a lab, and is it the Master that like is using a machine on him that shows all these different faces of who the Doctor's been before, and you see a whole bunch of faces that were like, who are
before
these?
Hartnell,
and
before Hartnell,
which were
faces.
Actually like their producers and like I think like the costume designer or whatever, just like people on the production staff were standing in for Doctors,
and that was before Deadly Assassin, right? When they set that 13 live rule that the Master was trying to.
I don't remember the timing. I think you're right. Yeah, I think that was beforehand. But that was
right?
all.
Because I feel like
that was all like non-canon, or like there was no explanation for it until we get to the Timeless Child, and now it's like, well, they could have just been pre-Hartnell Doctors. So like the retcon of like putting these pieces back together. It's funny, like you see someone like Russell T Davies or Moffat. I guess any of the showrunners, obviously, they have a deep affinity for Who, but diving into these small corners of like, well, what about this thing that never made sense? Hey, let's take that and make it make sense. What about this Richard E. Grant Doctor? Let's just take him and make it make sense. We'll just put it into the show. It's super fun that way.
And it all feels very much like Marvel Comics, the like Spider-Verse stuff, like where you're literally taking every incarnation of Spider-Man. Like there was a comic book that did that, I know, where I didn't read it, but they had taken like even like the Japanese version of Spider-Man was in it. You saw that in the movie too, the Spider-Verse movie, right? Where you had like Spider-Ham and like it feels like that's what this is. A little bit of that. Like we are in something where all of these universes exist at the same time, or they're all part of the same thing. So it's interesting.
Absolutely.
I like when they do stuff like that.
Did Rogue recognize? So the Doctor's trying to like, the countdown is happening. Of course, it's the last second. Sorry, the last Vexel before he gets obliterated.
Vexel. How long's a Vexel?
Right. Which was fun. That was fun. But he throws the second paper, hits the button. The Rogue could push the button, but he doesn't because now he's seeing all these other faces. Why isn't that to Rogue just proof that he's a shapeshifter?
That he's a shapeshifter, right? Because he immediately identifies him as a shapeshifter when he sees, I think, just David Tennant's face, right?
Yeah,
exactly. But then, it's like, okay, you just showed me that you've done it for a while.
The Doctor does say who he is of the fallen planet of Gallifrey.
I feel like he just believes him.
Okay, so that's all it is. It's just their like,
but I don't know
for
from the Doctor's perspective, what was that gonna get you?
Right.
Right?
I'm not a shapeshifter.
So
Look at all these other faces I've had. It doesn't really. But I did like that moment of like pause and Rogue's just like, wow. Like it was really like, okay. So
and then they're really best friends with benefits. And then they go to the TARDIS. They go to the TARDIS and they have that scene.
Right.
And in the TARDIS, this is one thing that drives me a little, not nuts, but it's like the Doctor goes, hey, you lost someone. He talks about that story. Yeah. Rogue talks about how he lost someone, and it's emotional. There's a whole thing. And then Rogue says, did you lose someone? And he goes, I lost everyone.
Right.
And I wanted to be like, dude, half of your companions are working at UNIT. You can visit them at any time.
True. I get.
You have not lost
all of
Gallifrey,
though, to be fair.
But he is more connected to these companions than to the stuffy Gallifreyans, that he mostly hates.
It's true.
So when he says stuff like that, it's like, you haven't.
Right.
Like,
no, it's true.
You literally are maybe a terribly narcissistic person that's toxic for all of these people because...
But you're right. He does say he says he loses everybody, and then Rogue's like...
one half of you is like hanging out in a backyard having a barbecue.
Totally just chilling. Yeah, suburban style. But the Rogue says to him, the blonde girl I saw you with, and he says, oh, my best friend. So it's like, you really haven't. He undercuts himself.
He just has a bad memory.
That's right.
Yeah, he just has bad ADHD,
well,
I guess.
Maybe it's just the way it feels, Eric. He just feels like he's lost everything.
I guess.
They
have to have that part of him that he's brooding and sad.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But
we do have that moment.
Something they've done a lot.
Since we're back in the TARDIS, and you had mentioned like the TARDIS groans at him, and the Doctor does say she gets upset by bounty hunters because of the moral void. Just a small thing, but like still referring back to the Doctor's wife episode. It's like the
yes, and he also says like at this point we cannot kill this CHUD. we have to deliver it to just some random empty universe.
Come on, man.
So if you're gonna find a random empty universe, you have to do a bunch of calculations and figure out which universe is empty and has no people. You would remember what universe you're dumping it into, and you should, in case you need to retrieve them for any reason.
Enough, Eric. That is a very good point as to how he could possibly find Rogue, as we see at the end that he's gone. Second, though. We can't send them to this incinerator to kill them. Instead, we're going to send them to an empty universe where they can live for years and then die. It's a really weird compromise.
Yes, and he knows very little about them. He's heard of them. He knows they're shapeshifters.
Yes.
He's not sure if he met one. He doesn't know how long they live.
Right.
And yet he knows what environment they need to survive. Like, to your point.
He's smart. That's one thing about the Doctor. He figures things out.
There's tons of those things. Again, it's like he's more of an emotional storyteller than he is detail oriented. So like a lot of the stuff is just like it's all fine.
Yes. We do get on the TARDIS as well. We get that almost kiss interrupted. So that's the first moment of like, woo, this is gonna happen, but then it doesn't. Which is really cool.
And it's not the first time the Doctor's kissed a man, right? So Christopher Eccleston did kiss Jack Harkness.
I was much better off as a coward.
Now, it's Jack Harkness kisses Christopher Eccleston.
Right.
It is a different
thing.
It's a different scene
because it's
not this.
There's no reciprocation at all.
But it did happen.
There's no. Yeah. Well, maybe there was reciprocation, but there was nothing obvious in that it was supposed to be.
It's nothing obvious. And Captain Jack Harkness is driving the scene. This is a mutual attraction scene.
Yes, absolutely.
You may call the Jack Harkness scene problematic these days because it is. Maybe it is. It's fine, but yeah. So that is that happens all the time. And
something we have. So
what stops them?
Oh,
what stop? It's
there's a ping because
goes off.
Yeah, he got the triform to recalibrate to not send it to the Inferno. So he was just waiting for that to be done. So all this time we're talking about obviously the main connection here, Rogue and the Doctor, but we do have Ruby going off on her own and doing her little Bridgerton fantasy cosplay as well. So she gets to do all this and follows two of the characters around, not knowing that they're both CHUDs. Sorry.
Well, at that point, I didn't think they both were.
I didn't either.
Thought
we didn't know.
Bookish woman at that point was still a bookish woman and didn't get taken over until later.
But we never. Fair enough. Very well could be.
Right, because the woman or the CHUD that takes her over, we had never seen before. It was like a surprise.
But we
saw
other bodies as people switched forms. Like we found bodies in the show, but we didn't find one for that. So maybe you're right. What I read from that was the two of them thought they were alone, and the two of them knew that they were both not CHUDs, whatever the name is. But they were still But they were still cosplaying anyway. They were still so into it that they were doing this thing. Like. So it could be, you're totally right. It could be like one was and one wasn't. It could have been both of them. And they're like, this is the thing we do. We go and we dive into this so deeply. Even if no one's around, we're still going to continue to play this cosplay thing.
Gotcha.
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah.
Because he had been, before it was taken over, the two of them, now I need the characters' names, but the bookish woman, was it Emily? Yes, Emily was interested in Lord Barton, but he gets taken over at the beginning of the episode that we see, but maybe there was some back and forth that was already happening there. This is all small details, but what was fun was...
I love that scene, though. I thought Millie Gibson, with the stumbling with the books,
exactly what I was going to say.
I like her a lot. Yeah, I think she's great. That whole scene was great. But yeah, I don't know if I'm 100% in that they were both CHUDs.
I don't know either.
I'm not going to stop saying CHUDs at that point, just because, like, I don't know, like, why would they not just fight over her?
Right, because I think that they were just so deep into doing this thing they want to do. But you're right, either way, it could be fine. What we do see before she goes into the library and follows them is she's walking around with Duchess Pemberton, and she sees a portrait on the wall, and Ruby says, "Who is
then
this?"
You get your
we got a Susan Twist. We got a Susan Twist in this one. It's funny to see. I wonder with this is something else too. I wonder with the production order and the shooting order. I don't know if they had planned out the order that they were going to air these, because in the previous story we had a lot bigger. It's just a moment, but a bigger kind of mention of Susan Twist. Like, I've seen her before. I know her from this. In this case, it was just kind of a smaller, like, who is she? And there wasn't anything more to it. Like, it feels like it could have been in the opposite order, and they continued to build more. Small thing, but like similarly in this episode, this is a thing about Bridgerton as well. It's imagining a world where racism kind of doesn't exist because the king married a mixed race woman, and that caused all of society to become colorblind or whatever. Fine.
Okay,
totally fine.
I didn't know that as part of the...
It's kind of a Bridgerton thing. You have a lot of people just, who you would not expect people of that race to be within society. Yeah. In this story, though, I don't think they're doing that. So I did a little research. I know, gasp, horror. I actually read things that weren't really Doctor Who. But like, slavery was still a thing in England at the time. It hadn't been abolished formally for another 20 years after the story takes place. There are very few, if any, as far as I know, again, not British, not a big history buff, just a little bit of research, but there weren't many people that weren't white in the aristocracy. But in this story, we see a lot. I think we see some servants. We also see, people dancing. So obviously party goers, guests of this that are dancing as well. The doctor has the whole confrontation, the causing a scene on the dance floor with Rogue, where it's like, you expect me to give up my title, give up my fortune? Would that have been a thing that actually existed?
But that scene,
though, would he be someone everyone would be like, oh yes, of course he is someone who would have a title? It seems strange to me, especially following on the heels of Dot and Bubble that was so explicitly about race, and to just alive it this way.
Yeah, I took this as race was not an issue at all, but to men was an issue, because when they start dancing, it stops the room, and they're all like, "Oh my, what is this going on?" But yeah, I was, it seemed to me like this is just not a thing.
Right. Like, but was it not a thing because it's a Doctor Who not a thing, or it's not a thing because in this world of the story it's not a thing? And if it's the latter, I don't think it could actually work that way. So it was just it would be fine normally. It was just strange to me after Dot and Bubble that this would be not mentioned in any way and just taken as fact. Small thing, but I thought it was kind of interesting.
Yeah, that scene was great. And then, so they have the, and the whole point of what they're doing is they're trying to create drama to draw the
shoulder,
the CHUDs out, the shoulders.
We did it.
So you have that whole proposal scene and the ring. Now, is there significance to the ring? Is the ring the same ring you love, or is it just a new ring? It's his ring.
I think it's a new ring. It doesn't look
because it has some markings on it. Is it meaningful at all?
I couldn't quite. I have a freeze frame of it. Maybe we can drop that here, but I couldn't quite tell what it is. It's like a little raised signet on it. It almost looks like a caterpillar to me. Like I can't quite tell what it is.
Don't take the ring, Laura.
Not that ring. Donna's ring, though. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But as the doctor's looking at the ring at the end, he's like pulls it out of his waistcoat and he's looking at it. You also see that he has, I think, Gallifreyan letters tattooed on his fingernails.
Yes.
Which was kind of a cool thing to see. Small thing, didn't matter to anything, but he's looking at the ring, and it's going to have some meaning. It's obviously going to, not obviously, I think we're meant to believe it's the thing that's going to allow him to find Rogue again. So we'll figure that out.
Yeah,
or unlock the story of like, who's his boss. Maybe this is a ring that's part of this, I don't know, crime syndicate or the Pantheon or whatever's happening here. That's kind of the bigger story.
But what do you think about the emotional thing going on? Like the fact that he gets on his knees and he it's like a real proposal, and the doctor reacts.
It did feel
in a way where he's like he's not, to me, he's not acting at that point.
Totally
he's
right.
Like saying no to this marriage.
Absolutely.
And running away.
Because I agree. I wrote the same thing in my notes because the doctor was saying in the scene that they're creating for drama, he says, how can you ask me to give up my title, give up my fortune? For what future can you promise me? And then he promises a future of marriage. And the doctor's like, whoop, uh-oh. And no, I totally read it the same way. This was the doctor reacting and not the persona that he was doing at that moment. I thought it was really good.
And is there a connection to that, to commitment, the doctor committing to someone?
Interesting.
To the end when he says, would you sacrifice your friend to save the, I don't remember what the language was, and he says no.
Right.
Is it that he just doesn't want to give up, he can't give up this lifestyle to be with someone else? Or is it just stuff that's layered in from his previous marriage to, because this is also a season in which we are reminded that the doctor has kids. Again, I don't have anyone. It's like, you just saw Susan, you were outside of her house before. The original Susan from, not Susan Twist, the Susan from
Susan Foreman,
Unearthly Child. But I've completely forgot what I was saying. What was I saying?
I don't know. You're saying
I was going on some running away. No, that this is a season in which we are reminded that the doctor has a kid, that it has a grandkid, that clearly he must have been with someone to have these kids.
One presumes.
So that is a whole thing. And now we see a marriage almost happen and not happen.
Absolutely.
So it's interesting to see all of that play out.
Yep.
Here.
A small thing too, when they're dancing, the doctor leads and Rogue is following. Not to read too much into like sexual or gender politics of how that works, but I just think it was interesting to note that as well. I love the dance scenes in the behind the scenes. They do talk about them wanting to do those all in one shot, so they really had to learn those dances very well. When the spotlight comes on them, that's actually happening in camera, so there's like this no editing, no break there. They're doing that whole spotlight dance together, which I thought was really, really good.
I did like the lighting cues that happen and where it's just all about
them. They're the only
moment.
ones in the world. Yeah, really nice.
Yeah, I feel like for the limited time they did a good job with their romance. Now, also with the romance, it's not a huge departure because we've seen a little bit of that with like the Doctor and Rose. So it's not,
and the Doctor and Yaz too,
and the Doctor and Yaz, or the Doctor and River Song. So like romance and the Doctor.
I would even say
it's a new
Martha
thing compared to classic.
Martha Jones and the Doctor too, which is unrequited in the other direction. She was. I mean, she was.
But that's not the Doctor.
I agree. I agree
that way. So I'm just saying, like, as the Doctor, because this is a new Doctor in all ways. Like, not acting really like any previous Doctor.
And I think it's the emotion.
Okay, like
it's the emotion that you talked about before. I think that's
it's interesting
the thing
to me
that makes
to change him up
1,000%. That the fun of having one character that gets played by multiple actors is this moment of getting to reinvent them. And I think you're right. You nailed it. Like the defining characteristic of this Doctor is his emotion. And it's not just one emotion. It's not the angry Doctor or the coming storm. It's not that stuff. It's every emotion, and it's
everything
on his sleeve at all times, just under the surface, until he tries to clamp it down, like you said at the end, when he's like, no, all right, we're just gonna keep moving forward. And Ruby understands that about him already.
Yes.
And it's like, no, we're going to sit in this for a minute. And he's like, this is silly.
Yeah,
I don't need it, whatever. And then he's like, oh.
What did you think about the triangle device
triform thing
that is used to send people to an incinerator or anywhere you want?
It's a fine plot device. I mean, it's not really.
I didn't love the fact that they establish, hey, once you're on this thing, you cannot leave. Your feet are stuck. He calls them
molecular
deadlocked
bonded
or something.
Well,
he makes that bond joke.
Molecular bonded to it, and then he says that it is deadlocked, meaning that he just can't override it.
Yet he
Again,
just shoves
these things,
Ruby out of the way. He
shoves it out of the way,
right off of the thing.
You do hear the computer say something like "matter transferred complete." 6 locked at 6 or something like matter exchange trap locked at 6 is what it says. So
what does that mean?
Meaning that he was holding the controller. Maybe I'm just saying, like, a way around it is he's holding the controller. He's able to like swap out one for another. Okay. Whatever. It's fine. They needed to give it that moment so they could do it. That whole leading up to this, like you'd already mentioned, can you lose your friend to save the world? And he says no, and Rogue says I know, and they kiss.
Yeah.
And you know that he's like taking the controller while they're kissing. Like that's really obvious. Sure. That's what he's gonna do. But you don't know what he's actually going to do about it. Is he just going to be like boom and push the button? It's like, oh, this love that I had for this guy, he's not who I thought he was. But no, he actually sacrifices himself in a way to go to some barren dimension
that he says, and it's like, you know, that was a great moment.
I thought it was really, really good.
What about?
Although Ruby, too, to talk about great performances.
Yeah, I want to talk about
Ruby being okay with, not okay, but like accepting her fate of being sacrificed to save the entire world. Yeah. Oh, Millie Gibson, she's just wonderful. But she was
great.
Just like,
I'm gonna miss her. But like in story, what was she doing? She says I'm cosplaying, but the minute the doctor confronts them on the triangle before you would think she would say it's me, and then step off of it. There's like one scene where you see her kind of move forward, but like she doesn't interrupt him until he's
from the
already set all 3 up. It's like
it's what was needed for the story.
To what end? Like,
well, also the show lied to us in terms of like meta critiques of the show.
Yeah,
she comes walking in, the bride and groom come walking in together, and then she does that like bird like move.
Oh,
like
the
they all do.
Sound.
And there's a sound effect of that.
Yes.
Which we've been trained to be like, oh, this is like bone shifting, or it's like something with them.
Yes.
So like the show lied to us at that moment.
Well,
which I don't
did
really
the
love.
show lie to us too? Because they say she smelled like another thing, and they say, oh, it's the
psychic earrings.
The psychic earrings. Which somehow, how do they know about that?
That's fine.
Unclear. How do they know what cosplay means? They're using it. Maybe.
Right. So they talk about like TV signals being broadcast into the universe.
Before we jump off of that, like. Does that mean something else? Like, does she exist outside of all of this, and she was one of those things? Like, is there something more to her character? Okay, you're saying
there's more to her character. I don't think
I'm
she's
just
a chud.
like, you know, no, not that she's a chud, but that she can become anything. That she can become anything.
Oh,
so,
maybe.
Like,
right.
She smelt like she can do ultimate cosplaying and
let me do it a different way.
Yes.
Let me come at that different. It's not that she can be anything, but that she has effects on reality. That we know. She makes it snow.
She changes
was in
perception.
Danger.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So I could see that. Yeah. Maybe this is
right because they do say that line.
The psychic earrings.
Psychic earrings will
she's
make
able to control the psychic earrings without even know that she's controlling them.
That doesn't make any sense.
It's fine.
Like it has an olfactory like abilities to like a pheromone release.
No. I was saying it the other way. The earrings were affecting the psyches of those around her to think that she smelled that way, not that it was releasing smell.
That's real. That's like way too powerful.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so, I won't ever use them again in my next story because it's too big. It breaks the story.
I know, but the fact that they say that and like again, it's like there's something here, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
But then it's over, and then he does.
It's over.
We talk about the kiss and the find me and
another small thing is the Rogue tosses the bouquet at the end before he disappears, which is kind of cute. Like,
which is what you do after a wedding. Like, and he's putting the ring on, so they are married.
They are is now canon.
Take
that
they're canon.
I love it.
That haters. At the end too, they again. I don't even know his real name. which is like maybe you do, maybe you've met him somehow in the future because he has a different face, and I don't know. There's something there.
There's absolutely something more to it that we're gonna hopefully find out real soon.
Anyway, that's all I got. I don't think I have anything else.
No,
I mean, I feel like we covered everything.
We didn't. Well, the only thing we didn't really talk about is what did you think of the production design for the creatures themselves, for the CHUD?
Oh, I love bird things. So I liked all of that. It reminded me of like an Alice in Wonderland type thing. Like I liked all of. Oh, speaking of the bird thing, this is not the case, but the first time I saw the birds, I was like, "Oh, remember when Ruby stepped on the butterfly and she became that other creature? Is that why she's?" But she had like more
lizardy
base. It was like a more of a
insecty something.
Yeah, like those things that lived under the earth in Doctor Who. I forget what they're called. We've reviewed like 1,000 stories about them.
Right, and they've been in New Who as well.
Yeah,
it's
but
the Sleestacks.
Back to the design. I thought it was great. I liked the makeup. I liked the actors portraying them.
Wonderful.
I would have liked a little bit more time with like some of the other. I didn't feel like they didn't really have any personality.
They had 5 of them, but they really only needed like 3 or 4. Like they just didn't really like the one that became the vicar. Like he killed the guy just to take his clothes. He didn't actually take his.
Yeah,
face.
he didn't even take it. He didn't even change
and he
his
didn't
face.
really need to be there. It's fine.
But do you get the? You don't get the memories of the thing.
No, doesn't seem because that was how Ruby convinced the Doctor. Like, this is my story. This is my mom's Church of Yeah.
And he's looking for one, but yet there's 5, so the intelligence is bad. Wherever he got it,
or he's part of it. Well, I don't know. We don't know. And then I guess at the end, little small thing.
Okay,
another
small detail.
He just left the bird ship to orbit the moon for hundreds of years. Like,
he's coming
seems
back.
like it should show up at some point. Like, people are going to eventually notice that. But okay, that's cool. I just parked your car over here. Like, even if he just said I parked on the dark side of the moon, that would. Okay.
Then you could just cue in.
If you watch this entire episode while listening to Dark, anyway. That was it for me. It was a fun story. Did your feelings about it change at all after talking through it, or you're pretty much like, it was good, and
I really liked it. I mean, I thought it was fun.
Yeah,
I thought it was fun, and I thought I liked, as a romance, like for what it was supposed to be, it succeeded.
Yeah.
If you look at it and like, why did this happen, or why did Ruby act this way, or like, then it starts to fall apart. I don't like all of the things that I mentioned, and that is something I guess Russell T Davies does, which is like, hey, the TARDIS can make you know kung fu, and this is like, and just like brushing off that stuff. If you just accept it for being a fun little thing, it's great. It was not my favorite. I don't think it matches 73 yards or whatever.
Right.
It's
different
not as good as that. It's
thing.
a different, 100%. It's a different kind of thing. I enjoyed it. It was. I'm glad I watched it. I watched it twice. It's way better than Space Babies.
Well, that's not saying a whole lot.
So I think all in all, too, like, what do you think of this season? Now that we're almost done with it, maybe we should.
I'm very excited for the next 2 stories to kind of tie things together in a way that doesn't feel maybe as rushed, because you've said this a couple of times that you feel like the pacing is a little bit
very quick,
elastic in the way, like some spending too much time in some places, not enough time in other places. So maybe it'll give us a little more breathing room to do a longer 2-part story. Looking forward to seeing how some of these pieces kind of tie together. So that's gonna be really fun. I think overall it's mostly all good stories that I would be happy to watch again, minus Space Babies. I might watch Dot and Bubble again sometime, but it's not going to be at the top of my list. But the ones that have hit have been incredible. So, but that's what we thought about it. Eric, hey, there are some other people.
What did other people? Actually, before you get to
my transition was beautiful, and you just
you said Dot and Bubble. We got a piece of feedback on Dot and Bubble from a listener.
Okay,
which I need to find right now. So you read your thing, because I got to find it. It's in
absolutely. It's
in the Spotify. We now have like this Q&A thing. So if you're listening to this broadcast right now on Spotify, at the end of the episode, I think you can tell us what you thought of the episode. So that's another way to get us questions for us to read. So
you
go on, and I'll
I'm
find
learning about
that.
this in real time, which is great. I want to say first, the whole thing with the Richard E. Grant doctor and who is that? Just want to call out, not that he needs any more, doesn't need my help getting followers, but Josh Snares on X, on YouTube, incredible YouTuber. I've mentioned it before. Kind of talk through some of that as well, of like, this is who this doctor is. So that's where I learned, anything even about this web series. So thank you, Josh Snares, for enlightening me on Twitter. But we did get some feedback. So if you're interested, you can let us know at the old TODWS show on X. Let's see. We got our friend Chuck saying, Rogues seem to be a redo of Captain Jack. They just let the Doctor return the flirting for real this time. Okay, yeah. Love the interaction between the Doctor and Rogue. Think it was really well done, but it feels a little like they were allowed to get it right this time. Different era of the show, different standards. Like, yeah, it's nice to finally get to see that. That's really cool. He goes on to say, also having a Doctor Who is so openly bi is absolutely wonderful. Having only had Bowie to look to as a youth makes me so happy that young bi people have Ncuti's Doctor as a role model. Representation matters, absolutely. Wonderful. Totally agree with you on that, Chuck. Alan says, this was easily my favorite episode of the season so far. Cool. Ncuti really gets to showcase some range and subtlety. Rogue feels like an updated Captain Jack. There we go. Who, with all due respect,
I feel like a lot of people will.
I've seen little moments of that across the internet as well. Rogue feels like an updated Captain Jack, who, with all due respect to JB, needed an update. I think we kind of mentioned that. Ruby continues to be a joy to watch. I admit that I appreciate the Doctor's asexuality throughout so much of his history, and as I get older, I like his romance subplots with New Who less and less, but this one really worked for me. That's interesting too. I mean, if you think about like the queer or just sexual spectrum, there is one area that we haven't really explored is the asexual, aromantic. I guess that was kind of implicit in the classic Who Doctors to this point, that there isn't a whole lot of romance, there isn't a lot of sexuality, and that was really that changed in New Who in different ways.
Yeah.
But it's never been an explicit thing, which I think is something that's...
Yes. It was never... I mean, maybe like the Romana 2 era, like thinking of City of Love, right? Or City of Death, not City of Love. But I feel like a lot of that is the actors were dating at the time too. Right. But it was never explicit.
There was never,
and there was no chance the Doctor was kissing anyone ever.
Right.
I don't remember any scenes where it's like, oh, this could go. Like,
no,
they didn't really start playing with that until Russell D. Davies.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's not a surprise that.
No, that's true. Like,
there
like. Was a little bit of like the will they, won't they kind of, especially when you're thinking about like the romantic tropes, which you see a lot on display in this episode of like enemies who become lovers. There was kind of this like Romana, especially Romana 1, I guess, being like superior to the Doctor or felt that she was, but then they kind of like, is there a relationship?
Well,
but they never
felt
make
like
it explicit.
She was more of an equal than superior.
I think she felt that she was superior, but yes, I think as a companion,
she was the greatest. I mean, I love her.
You have mentioned that.
I do love her, but I feel like she was more of an equal, and then maybe he was not having it.
Yeah, maybe
versus her lording over him, but maybe not. It's been a while since we watch them.
Yep.
But I do like the no romance part of the Doctor, that it's not even a thing. But that's what's so powerful about the show is you can have all these different incarnations and get a new experience. Right. So if this is an experience of a Doctor who's romantic and interested in that kind of thing, then why not have that story?
Yeah.
And then the next one maybe changes and it's totally different and it's something new. So I like that they're exploring that kind of thing.
It just gives them a lot of room
like
for
they're
that.
Not hinting at it like they're fully committed to it. Which
it is
cool.
no longer subtext. It is purely text.
Yes.
Yep. Alan does have one more note here. I also thought the villains were really fun. I wish the story stayed a little bit more low stakes. Do we really need to cosplay the world to death or whatever? But I love the Hemi performances and the weird bird makeup. Great stuff all around. Yeah, I also don't know. It's one of these things. I don't know if it's unique to this series or if I'm just more sensitive to it, but a lot of logical leaps that I don't quite get how they're getting to. I don't know how the Doctor figured out, like, oh, they're cosplaying. Like, it just felt like he looked around and saw people dancing, and there's like, okay.
That's like the Russell T. Davies trend in some of these stories, not all these stories, where that stuff doesn't matter. It's like, we just need to connect these dots. I'm going to connect these dots.
Right.
Like, if I'm again, as a romance, I have to look at this. I have to look at this whole episode as a romance and a romance tropes and those kind of things.
Sure.
Looking at it the way I like my favorite Doctor Who's are more like detective stories where the Doctor is figuring these things out, and you don't really get any of that. Like when they're like, oh, this thing only holds one, I'm just going to go over here, mumble a line, and now we're going to...
Yes.
And even like Ruby fighting and she get the superpowers instead of figuring out. Like, I prefer more of a detective Doctor. That's not this. This is it's romance, Bridgerton, as they told you.
Plus action.
Story.
Yeah. No, I like that too.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, like, if in a detective story or mystery movie or whatever, if you as the audience can't also answer the question, if you're not given the clues to be able to solve it yourself, then it feels like cheating. It's like hiding something. Oh, this one piece of information that only this person knows that you could never figure out. It's actually, have you ever seen the movie Murder by Death from the 70s? Oh my goodness!
It's the comedy.
It's the comedy.
Peter Sellers.
Peter Sellers.
It's probably it's very racist.
That does not hold up. It's also got Truman Capote in it.
I've seen
Eileen Brennan. Yeah, it's great.
I know that from watching the Truman Capote show on Hulu, which is great.
Yes, it was.
Is Truman Capote and the Swans or something like that, and the Swans, amazing. But I have not seen the movie. Okay. But it looked very...
The conceit of the movie is that he's drawing all these mystery... I guess they're all like mystery writer novels coming there.
Yeah, so like Agatha Christie is there, and Poirot,
versions of them, and he's bringing them there to kill them because they write these stories that no reader could actually answer the stories because they cheat. So just anyway, sorry, just one of my favorite like campy sort of movies. Just makes me think of that. Talk about a tangent. Let's see. Misfit Scully says on Twitter, loved it. I've sent a message to you guys. Looking forward to what you both think. And the message says, I absolutely loved the pomp and ceremony of Rogue. The story, far too much to like, don't want to be boring. Just here's a few random notes. Top marks to the design teams on this episode. The Doctor's jackets were very Pertwee in color. Also, the costuming was phenomenal.
Yeah, great.
Loved all the mentions of Bridgerton. They had the choreographer from the Netflix show do the dances as well. So the choreographer from Bridgerton actually did their choreography for this, which was in the behind the scenes as well. Very cool.
So the Bridgerton show is very dance heavy.
Well, they have these balls and these things. So like the social aspect, has a lot of that sort of thing too. The Regency dances. The Doctor and Ruby dancing at the start. You can see the joy. Rogue really seemed like Captain Jack, like a Captain Jack reboot.
Yeah.
The chemistry between the actors was electric. I do hope he appears again. We do too. I think it's going to happen. The dance between them really worked. Rogue down on one knee, and the ring made me squeal. The Chulder was very imaginative. The one that became the vicar constantly reminded me of Mr. Johnson on Sesame Street. And Scully attached a picture. It's
okay.
We could drop it in here, but yes, very very much so. That's very funny. And overall loved it. Won't go wrong. Silly does mention that some of the ratings aren't quite as high as they used to be. Some of that could be just there's so much things to watch and whatnot. Maybe some of it has to do with the time change, the way they're releasing it. Who knows? As long as it's still out there and it's doing well for Disney, that means they're going to keep making more. I'm cool with it. But thank you so much, Scully, for sending us a message as well. If you want to read a message to you online, please, you can either message us on Twitter or X. You can send us an email at theolddoctorwhoshow@gmail.com. You can also, like Eric said, on Spotify
now
at the end.
Spotify.
You can give us a review on iTunes or YouTube comments as well. There's a number of ways you can get in touch with us. Also,
there's a lot. Yeah.
Twitter,
YouTube comments.
Instagram, a little bit on TikTok as well, the TODWS show. So wherever you consume your social media, please get in touch with us there.
You can find us somewhere. Speaking of Spotify, so this was a comment response to our review of Dot and Bubble. So Joseph writes, white men, not a fan of alluding to white supremacy, sounds about ... Now, I would say first off, thank you for listening to the review.
Yes,
and secondly, did you listen to the review? Because I feel like that was the only part that we both liked.
Eric, it was so funny how neither of us wanted to talk about the white supremacy and racism in the episode, and all we wanted to do was just focus on the slug creatures. We just didn't talk about... No,
Yes,
I mean, obviously, this was... Now, did we get everything right? I mean, probably not. No,
yeah, we have coming from our own perspectives, and,
but I think
baggage,
we both
but
appreciated where it was coming from and the story it was trying to tell, and Shoutout performance in being able to embody that. I think we both thought was great. So
yeah, 100%. So like again, I had said it during the review that it was that the ending almost redeemed or did redeem a lot of the stuff but I feel like it was a weak story for all of those reasons that I mentioned. But the message was important. So
yeah,
whatever, it's fine. Again, thanks for listening, but I'm not sure if they listen. Maybe sometimes people, I think, listen to things and then maybe it got to one of us, probably me, saying like, I didn't like it and then just stopped and posted.
Maybe. Or,
I feel like we get a lot
or
of
we just
like
weren't
that,
as clear about our opinions as we thought we were, but that's fine.
Yeah,
I'm glad that there's a conversation happening, which is great.
Yes, of course.
Yep.
Okay,
Anything
that's
else?
it. I mean, that was the only comment we've ever gotten. I have not looked up
on Spotify
podcast reviews on the Apple side, so maybe next time we'll look. Maybe we've gotten a new review. We're supposed to read them.
Very cool.
That's it.
All right,
folks.
until
next time. Until next time, we're not sure what'll happen next time. So maybe it'll be one of us. Maybe it'll be both of us. Maybe it'll be me and someone else. We don't know.
I'm going to be away for
tuned.
2 weeks. And of course, it's the 2 weeks when the finale is dropping in 2 parts. We're going to see what we can do about it. I might just record from vacation. Who knows? I don't know. Anyway,
you know what I think we should do? And we'll talk about it off air as soon as we hang out. I think I have a potential solution. So let's end the show here and leave you with that.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Thank you for watching. So what did you think of the story? Let us know in the comments or write us at theolddoctorwhoshow@gmail.com. And if you want to support the show, please let others know about us. Share it on whatever is left of social media these days. If you want to support me, I've got a number of books available for purchase, including On the Island of the Mad Magician. It's available right now on Amazon or wherever fine books are sold. The Wolf and the Well, the sequel to the graphic novel Goblin from Will Perkins and I, was recently announced, and it's available for pre-order today. It really does help a lot. Till next time, be good.
Where's my robot,